Hi, all. I hope you're having a good week, and I'm looking forward to seeing you on Friday and then for our small group presentations that will begin the following week. So, I wanted to take a few minutes to talk about two things. One that's very relevant between now and class on Friday and has been relevant since last class, so it's meant as a reminder. And the other to give you a little bit of information about the presentations, just a little bit. We'll talk more about them on Friday. First, there's the present moment pivot point. You recall that on Friday, if you were in class, and if you didn't, then please do send me a picture of your present moment pivot point. It's a spot on the law school campus or approaching the law school campus where you find yourselves on a regular basis when you come to school or when you leave school, either way, that can be the spot where you will pause intentionally and then, however you wish to play it out, spend a few moments with that present moment pivot. That is to say, wherever your thoughts were and wherever they're going to be once you begin walking again, you stop and you pause, and perhaps you internally count to 6 and then count to 6 and then walk. Maybe you do the stop practice and you stop, take a breath, observe, and then proceed. Maybe you practice drop the story, feel the energy, but for a pause. Maybe you practice stop, look, and listen, another but for a pause. Maybe you come up with your own creative way to drop in and be a little bit more present in that moment where you actually come to a stop. So if between Friday and today you haven't done that, you've got Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday before class, assuming that you're coming to campus these days, to get to that present pivot point, stop. And by the way, the hard part of this, if there's a hard part, is to remember to do it. There are some definitions of mindfulness, the way it's interpreted from some of its origin source terms, that means remembering, because we often forget. And we could look at this present moment pivot point opportunity as first just to practice remembering. When you get to that point, stop and then carry on. We'll talk more about that in class, but please, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, begin to or continue to practice that. And if for some reason you're not going to be here today, Wednesday, you're not going to be on campus Thursday, then find a present moment pivot point outside of where you live, so that as you're walking into your home or your apartment, or you're leaving it, you have that same opportunity. The key here is this: roughly the same place, the same specific spot to stop. As I've shared with you all, for me, among others, it's when I'm walking to and from campus from my car, passing in between the library and Einstein's. And every single time I do, I get to one of the sort of white cross points along the bricks, and I stop. And then what I do depends on how much time I have and how busy my mind is and how I feel. And it could be as simple as stopping, taking a breath, looking around, and proceeding. We're not interested necessarily in what it is we do. We're interested in what changes and what capacities shift and what we begin to realize more fully in those moments that we're doing it. So let your present moment pivot experience be whatever you choose to make it, drawing on any of the many things that we've learned and explored. It's really your sort of go-to present moment pivot practice. And it's this point that we're picking so that we don't go through a day and not have at least one moment where we could say are a little bit more fully present and aware. Alrighty, so that's the present moment pivot point. And then the second is your presentations. As I indicated, we will talk more about this in class, but even in class we won't talk that much more about it because it's pretty straightforward. We're going to meet in groups of roughly four of you. You're each going to take a turn talking about your paper as it is presently being formulated. Some of you have drafts that you're working on. Some of you haven't begun working on your drafts. Some of you are in different stages of your outline, and some of you are beginning to rethink specifically what you're going to write about. All of that's good. You're in charge of your the process of putting together your paper. I'm here to help you as much as I can and as much as you would make the request. But for purposes of our presentation, you will take about 5 minutes and talk about your paper, ideally without notes. You'll just be talking about what you're planning on writing about. I'll provide you in class with various things to make sure that you at least consider bringing into that. But essentially, as I'm writing about this topic, this is why I've chosen to write about this topic. These are some of the reasons why I think mindfulness practices can be helpful. In my paper, I plan on talking about this and this and this. I'll probably give an example like this. And the way I'll talk about a mindfulness practice that I found most useful, the body scan, and a settling technique, the box breathing. And I'm going to also talk about this other practice and this other settling technique, but they're not going to be the primary ones. I'm going to really talk about these two, and this is how I will make the case for how it is that the practicing of mindfulness can be helpful for this objective, which is, where my paper is going, what the subject matter of my paper is. And then I'll close with some tips for how to have others, begin to practice, and I'll share along the way my own experience. Boom, that's it. It would have been 5 minutes, so I shortened that, but that's the gist of it. You can't go wrong. The key is this: you're not doing it to present and then I'm done, I presented. The presentation is the tip of the iceberg. You're doing it so that you actually begin to formulate more clearly and crisply what your paper is about. That if you're going to share it with others, you all of a sudden have to begin to refine the edges of it. You need to begin to, if you haven't already, figure out which practices am I going to include and why. So the presentation is merely the expression of having given it that thought and reflection to better know for yourself where your paper's going. But that's still part of the tip of the iceberg. The opportunity then is for others to hear what you're writing about, for you to ask questions of them, whatever the question that might be that you're not sure about as you are thinking through your paper, to have them offer you their thoughts around it, and for us to have that opportunity with everyone. So I encourage you to be prepared, know what you want to say, recognize that you can speak to the gaps that you're not quite sure about, but not gaps because you haven't thought it through, gaps because you have thought it through, and these are things that you realize are open questions or things that you're not necessarily clear on, so that we can have a shared conversation around that. Alrighty, I hope that is helpful. Look forward to seeing you on Friday. If you have any questions about anything, feel free to reach out, and wishing you well.